Luke chapter 4, verses 20 through 30. Continuation. How many of y'all cheated and went ahead and read? I told you it was going to be a continuation last week. Did you go ahead and read ahead? You know it by heart? If I need to just sit down, you know it. All right, let's proceed here. Luke chapter 4, verses 20 through 30. And he rolled up the scroll, gave it back to the attendant, and sat down. The eyes of all in the synagogue were fixed upon him. Then he began to say to them, "Today this scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing." All spoke well of him, and were amazed at the gracious words that came from his mouth. They said, "Is not this Joseph's son?" He said to them, "Doubtless you will quote to me this proverb, 'Doctor, cure yourself.' And you will say, 'Do here also in your hometown the things that we have heard you do at Capernaum.' And he said, 'Truly I tell you, no prophet is accepted in the prophet's hometown. But the truth is, there were many widows in Israel in the time of Elijah, when the heaven was shut up for 3 years and 6 months, and there was a severe famine all over the land. Yet Elijah was sent to none of them except to the widow at Zarephath in Sidon. There were also many lepers in Israel in the time of the prophet Elisha, and none of them was cleansed except for Naaman, the Syrian." When they heard this, all in the synagogue were filled with rage. They got up, drove him out of town, and led him to the brow of the hill on which their town was built, so that they may hurl him off the cliff. But he passed through the midst of them and went on his way. May God bless today's reading. Several years back, there was a priest on a train, and he noticed coming up the aisle a man who seemed to be at least somewhat intoxicated, would be a nice way of putting it. He was shabbily dressed. He had red lipstick on the side of his face and on his collar, and as he staggered closer, you could smell that he probably hadn't had a bath in a couple of days. And he sat down next to the priest and opened the daily paper. And after a few minutes, he turned to the priest and he said, "Father, what causes a man to get arthritis?" And the priest was a little bit put out by the man and said, "I'll tell you what causes arthritis. It's loose living. Drinking too much, staying out all night with wicked women and prostitutes, and having contempt for your fellow man. That's what causes arthritis." And the man said, all right. And he went back to reading his paper. And the priest, a few minutes later, felt a little bit bad about what he had said and knew he had gone a little bit overboard. And he said, "Sir, I was sorry. I was a little bit abrupt with you." He said, "How long have you had arthritis?" And he said, "Oh, I don't have arthritis. I was just reading here that the Pope did." Sometimes things don't turn out like we planned. And for those of you, I'm not picking on Catholics. Please, no, I'm not picking on. I was raised Catholic, so I'm not picking on Catholics. It's just a humorous story. Those of you visiting don't know. But sometimes we make assumptions, don't we, of things, and they don't turn out quite like we thought they would. Anybody ever done that? Is it a humbling experience? Yes, it is. And sometimes we think we know things, and we don't know. And that's kind of what we get some of today. Jesus has returned to his hometown. We talked about this some last week. Jesus has returned to his hometown, and he's about a year into his ministry, and they've heard about the things he's done all around the countryside. They're kind of excited. Jesus is coming back home, and he goes and he reads in the synagogue on the Sabbath, which is his tradition to go to the church. To the synagogue, not church, to the synagogue. And he reads from the book of Isaiah, and he tells them, that salvation basically has come. That I am the fulfillment of this reading from Isaiah. Salvation has come to you today. And he rolls it up and he hands it back to them and he sits down. And initially, it sounds like it's been pretty well received, and the people are in good spirits. Then someone says, "Isn't that Joseph's son?" And they start to kind of question things a little bit. Isn't that Jesus who used to run around the streets here? How is he the fulfillment of the salvation? How's that? You know, they start questioning it a little bit. And Jesus, I'm sure, hears this and says, you know, surely you're going to say, you know, doctor cured yourself. Basically, you're going to say, show me something. You know, we know about the miracles you've been doing everywhere else. Show me something. And Jesus isn't going to do it. He's not going to be a part of it. And so he gives them some examples from the Old Testament. He tells them a couple stories about the widow from Sidon who's touched by Elijah, and Laman who's cured of leprosy. And how come these were Gentiles and they were healed, or God attended to their needs, and not the Israelites? And these weren't popular stories with the Israelites. They didn't, as a matter of fact, they didn't like them at all. And it made them mad. It made them angry. So angry that they were going to take Jesus out and throw him off a cliff. That's how you shunned people back then. You threw him off a cliff. And they took him out to the edge of town. They were angry. But why were they so angry? Hadn't Jesus just said, I'm here. Excuse me. I'm here. I bring fulfillment of this promise. I'm the salvation. That's good news, right? So why were they angry? What made them so mad? If you come to me and tell me I'm the salvation's here, that's a joyous thing. So what made them angry? There's a couple thoughts on this. First thing that comes to mind is they were pretty self-centered. They were pretty arrogant. I don't think they minded salvation being fulfilled for them, but when they heard that it could be for the Gentiles. The Gentiles weren't their friends. These were people they despised. You know, they thought, well, it's good enough for me, but it's not good enough for them. Right? We ever get that way? A little self-centered times? You ever been there? We say, well, it's good if I get it, but I don't know that everybody should get it. But the salvation Jesus brought wasn't just for the Israelites. It was for everyone. That means it was for all of you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and beyond those doors we go out, and every person we meet, it was for them as well. Now, whether they accept it or take it, understand it, is a different story. But it was meant for everyone. And that did not sit well with them, because they were a little self-centered. And it's easy to see. We live today in a self-centered world. Do we not? It's the truth, you know? Mm-hmm. You get a little angry sometimes when somebody wants to get in front of you in traffic. What's going on? I got to be somewhere. Don't they know it? Well, they got to be somewhere too. And it's hard sometimes to make that transformation. I call that a transformational moment. That's when we grow up enough to realize that it's not about me. It's about we. Not about me, about we. Right? That there's enough salvation for everybody, but not only that, we live in a world that's not just about me. Some people never get it. I'm going to tell you, I've met them, just never get it. They come in all ages, shapes, and sizes, but they don't get it. It's not about me, it's about me. I can remember back when, I think I told you once before, my daughter was Miss Teen Virginia USA. And she went to the national competition and was going to compete on national TV for this title, Miss Teen USA. And she was very favored. I mean, they had polls out, and they had discussions, and there was these blogs that go on about, and everybody was talking about Miss Virginia and how Virginia hadn't had a winner in so long, but they were going to have a winner this year, and she was, you know, blah, 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 and they had votes, and she was going to win. Well, she didn't win. She didn't even get in the top 5. She did do the top 10, and very good. I mean, proud of her. I think it's great she was top 10. She didn't win. But you can imagine as a teenager who'd been told, and heard all this speculation. You're going to win. You're going to be it. You're the one. You're the one. You're the one who's going to bring that title home to Virginia that's been gone for so long. You're the one. And then all of a sudden, it's like, no, you're not. A little disappointment, you think? A little maybe anger that you weren't? I mean, everybody said I was. How'd they get it wrong? You know, those jokes. That's what you would expect. I mean, but I have to tell you that the transformational I saw my daughter wasn't on that stage. But the next day we were all getting ready to leave. And we were about to fly back. And everybody was there. I mean, all the girls were catching different flights to different states and different, going back. And the girl who had been crowned Miss USA was sitting across the thing. And Tori never was talking to her. And she was showing Tori all the things she had won and all that stuff. And, you know, and this little girl walked up to Tori and said, "Are you Miss Virginia?" And Tori said, yes, I am. And she said, "You were the prettiest one out there." Now, Tori could have used that opportunity to say, "Yes, I was." Or to say, "Yeah, tell her. She's got the crown." I mean, she could use the opportunity for anything, but without blinking an eye, Tori said, "Well, thank you very much." He said, "But you know, they picked the right girl. And let me introduce you to her. Her name is Allie." That's pretty good for a 17-year-old. I think that's pretty mature. That's realizing that it's not about me, it's about we. That's realizing that someone else doing well doesn't take away from who you are. The fact that the salvation was for the Gentiles as well doesn't take away from the fact that the salvation was for the Israelites too. But you were so angry about it being for the Gentiles that you missed this part here, where it's for you too. Sometimes we get jealous because other people get something that we think we deserve or we should have. But it doesn't take, the fact that we didn't get it doesn't take away from who we are, right? Life's a competition, isn't that right? Get the most, collect the most, who can have the biggest cars and the nicest cars and the biggest house? Is that what life's about? Really? I lose. I'm okay with that. I lose. But that's what the world will tell you that it's about. And it's not. It's not. It's not about me and what I can do for me and who I can be. Although those are important things. There's nothing wrong with things. And don't get me wrong. I'm not saying if you have those things, it's wrong. It's great. Congratulations. I'm happy for you. But I'm not sad for me. You see the difference? I'm not worried about what you have, that you have too much. Because I'm happy with who I am. And very content with who I am. And the fact that salvation was for everyone should not upset the Israelites, but it did. It made them angry. And I don't think they got the idea that when you receive a gift, the best gift you can get is one that you can share with someone else. The one that you can pass on. Right? Have you ever won something? Let me tell you a story. When I was a freshman in high school, freshman in college, I went, they had a slam dunk competition. I went, I competed, I won. Had a nice trophy, gave it to me. There was nobody there to see that I won that. I had no friends, no family. I didn't invite anybody. I didn't care. It was just, I didn't even think I was going to win. So I went. The first thing I wanted to do was what? I wanted to share with everybody. I wanted to show everybody, right? So when you get something, when you have good news, you want to run out and share it with somebody. I couldn't find nobody. Everybody was gone downtown drinking. But here I sat in my room with my trophy by myself. Oh, okay. Well, anyway, but that was the thing. When you have good news, you want to share, right? Because the joy spreads. There's no bigger example. If you look at the Holy Land itself, there are two seas, right? The Sea of Galilee. And what's the other? Dead Sea, right? Water flows into the Sea of Galilee. It flows out down the Jordan River into Dead Sea. Where does it flow out of in the Dead Sea? No. What lives in the Dead Sea? Nothing. That's right. Why is it dead? Because nothing flows out of it. It becomes stagnant. Dead. Useless. The living water that came to it, when kept bottled up inside, becomes useless. Sea of Galilee flourishes. Fish of all kinds. Vegetation all around it. Dead Sea is what? Why do you think they call it Dead Sea? It's dead. Nothing left. All right? See the difference? It's good to share that news, but those people weren't getting it. They didn't get it. The other thing I look at these scriptures and I try to find an angle. I try to look and see what's the message. And I realize, we're all a little bit selfish sometimes. When I got that part, I said, well, what really is the problem? And what I came up with was this. I started thinking, I said, how small was their God if they thought that he could only bless them? They had the wrong picture of what God is. They had a picture of God that was limited. My God's not that God. My God's limitless. My God's a big God. He doesn't fit in some little box that I take out when I need him. He's all around me. He walks with me and he talks with me. He encourages me when I'm down. He is my strength when I am weak. My God can part the Red Sea. My God can take a slingshot in the hands of a boy and kill Goliath. My God is a big God. How big is your God? Does he fit in a drawer at home? Does he fit in your pocket? You take him out when you need him and pray to him and say, please do this for me. Is that your God? It's not my God. My God's big. He's huge. As a matter of fact, my favorite, one unforgettable word that I learned in seminary is ineffable. Anybody know what it means? Ineffable. I'll spell it for you. I-N-E-F-F-A-B-L-E. Ineffable. It means too big or sacred to be described by words. That's God. God is too big to be described by words. Because in describing him with one little word or one portion of word, I leave out so much. I could actually stand here all day and describe God to you and never run out of words that describe God. That's how big my God is. Now the question is, how big is your God? And I can't answer for that for you. I know how big God is. But how big do you perceive him to be? Me and Aubrey were talking. I know a little bit about Aubrey because we've had some interchanges, up here a few times, and I've been around her for a little bit. I know a little bit about some of y'all, and some of you I know nothing about. Because we haven't interacted, right? We haven't experienced life together. I mean, you know me, you know what I tell you. I could tell you anything. You probably wouldn't know whether it was true or not, but I probably should tell you the truth. But the fact of the matter is that you don't really know me. You didn't know I had hair like that until just today when I brought a picture. It's not shot. It's not photoshopped. I promise you. I didn't make that up. You can't make that kind of hair up. It just doesn't happen. But I mean, there's a lot of things about me you don't know, and we're still learning each other, right? We haven't been here that long. We've only been here, 6 months maybe? I mean, well, it's been almost, May was a year, but not on a constant basis since August, right? So it hasn't been that long. So we're kind of still getting to know each other. I'm getting to know you and what you do and what you. But it's not about me and you. It is about we. But what it is about you and your relationship with God. And how much time do you spend getting to know God? Do you really know him? Are you like the Israelites who knew him as a boy, but didn't know him as a man? And certainly didn't understand him as God, the Son of God. So where are you at in your relationship? I can tell you, there's a lot of ways to learn, and we talked about this last week. Don't count on me. I give you my insight into the Scriptures, what I research and what I find out, what I believe. But don't count on me because there's a lot of me, just like anybody else. And I tell you this not because I'm telling you wrong, but I'm telling you this because You need to learn it yourself. You need to spend time in the scriptures. You need to know that Jesus is a story. You need to know if I'm up here feeding you a lie or not. So you can call me out on it. Okay? But I'm not. But you still need to know, right? It needs to be your story. And we have some great Sunday school teachers that come in here, up here, and I sit in the back and I listen to them. They have some great insight, and you're very blessed to have that. But you can't count on them either. That's their insight. And I can tell you the scriptures are a living, breathing thing. That every time you read the scriptures, and I've read them, the same passages on several times, and it speaks to you in a different way, depending on where you are at in life. Have you ever done that? You know, I can guarantee you the stories you hear in Sunday school as a child will differ when you go back and read them now. Because it's a different message. Because you were a child. Now you're an adult. You need to get to know them. You need to get to know Jesus. Because when you don't know Jesus, you're missing out. You're missing the meat of the meal. You're missing the main course. You need to know him. There was a story of a man who was a recluse in Colorado. He spent most of his life up in the mountains in this shack trying to find gold or finding bits and pieces of gold. He finally passed, and they called his relatives. They were distant relatives. They really didn't know him that well. They came to check out, to make his funeral arrangements, and they made the funeral arrangements and finally went up to the shack where he had lived. And we're going to see what was there, if there was anything of value. And they went in, they looked, and there wasn't really much there. There was a fireplace with one of those, I'm not even sure what they're called, those arms that swing in and you can cook your meal. I'm talking about the way they used to do it. I've never done it, but not much. A pot there, a table sat there with a lantern, one of those kerosene lanterns in the middle of it. That was his light, and you had a few dishes around. There was a few odds and ends around, but really not much of anything that you would consider value. And the folks looked around, they picked up a few of the odds and ends that they thought might have been some value or some keepsake type things. And they took those and they were leaving. And as they were leaving, they ran across a friend of his, a good friend of his, who was coming up the mountain with a mule. And his friend said, do you mind if I look around and see what's there that I can keep? They said, oh, we're done with it. Whatever you want, you take it, it's yours. And the man said, okay. So he walked in, and they drove on down the mountain, and he walked in, and he went over to that table that was sitting next to the fireplace, and he slid it over a little bit and pulled up the floorboard. And underneath that floorboard was a huge bag of gold that the man had collected all his life. But the only reason he knew it was there was what? Because they were friends. He knew him. The other folks didn't know him, and they didn't know what they were missing. But he was his friend, and he knew him. And there was enough gold there to build a palace that he wanted to. He had collected it all his life, but no one knew it was there except his friend. Do you have that kind of relationship with God? Do you know his true value? Do you know the good news of salvation? Do you know it well enough to share it with somebody? When you encounter people on the street, do you talk to them about it? You talked about the world was changing this morning. I said in the Sunday school class, how slowly but surely they're taking away our. I said in the Sunday school class, how slowly but surely they're taking away our. You don't hear God in the Pledge of Allegiance, and you can't say prayer in school. There's no Ten Commandments. And basically that the input of God into our society is diminishing greatly. And I have to say, that's what you see. You do see a lot of that. But you have to ask yourself why. Where's your voice? What do you believe in? When they took it away, did you object? Did you say anything? Did you care? Or was it just something else to fuss about? If you care about something, I would say, you may not win, but if you don't fight a battle, you surely will never win. The Ten Commandments don't start in the classroom, they start at home. Just because they take them out of the classroom doesn't mean they've taken them out of society. There was a big battle going on in Kentucky when I was there. And my congregation was like, man, they're taking those out. They won't let them, Ten Commandments be in school. I was like, are they in your home? Well, why would you rely on the state to do your job? Teach them at home, and then they're taught. And you don't have to worry about whether or not they're taught in school or not. Right? It begins at home. It's your voice. Let your children know it's important. These are important things to us. The Bible, our relationship with God is not something to be tossed aside. It's important. I'm getting low. Thank you. Thank you. These are, I was getting low. I just understand what's, thank you. These are important things to us, are they not? And let it be known that they're important things. I'm not a politician. I don't want to get into politics, what's right or what's wrong. I'm just saying if it's important to you, then you should let it be known. Don't sit back and let them change your world without you objecting if you object. I'm just saying. But I got off my sermon. Man, I hate when I do that. But the point of it is this. Is he knew him, he got the goal. As we look at the story of Christ, do you get the goal? Do you get it? Do you get the story? Do you understand the story? Do you get what it's all about? If you don't have that deep relationship with Christ, or you haven't say, well, I kind of know Jesus. And that guy, he lived 2,000 years ago, right? I kind of know the story. Get in the story. Read it. It's not hard to understand. It's a very simple story. I told you last week, it's a love story. It flows well. Just go in there and read it for yourself. I mean, I'll show up here every week and preach, but you need to know it for yourself. You need to have it embedded in your heart. And the reason is when you get out there and you encounter somebody who doesn't know it, they say, well, tell me the story. I'm interested in this Jesus fellow. Tell me about him. What would you say? How big is your God? Is he the manger Jesus? Is that as far as you get? That's a great story. But it's more than that, right? And we know that. And we know that. How big is your God? Think about it this week. And if he's not big, if he's not so huge, he fills his church and outside, then re-examine it and find out why. All right, that's my challenge to you. And if you don't know Christ at all, I'd love to talk to you about it. Come find me after the service or give me a call. Well, I'll be glad to set up time to come talk to you about it. But you need to know Jesus. He is the answer. He brings good news, the salvation to the world. And we need to be spreading that message. Because when we lay down and we don't spread it, and we become the Dead Sea, it will surely die. Someone spread it before you, right? And someone spread it before them. It's too important to drop the ball. Amen? Amen. Please join me in our hymn of response this morning. Our hymn of response this morning is Room at the Cross, hymn number 460.